Hey everyone, welcome to The Creek. My name is Jared Miller and I'm the ministry lead here. And Christmas is absolutely my favorite part of the year. It's not my favorite holiday. We'll get into that maybe in a minute. But it is my absolute hands down favorite time of the year because really of what it means in terms of the whole Christian story. The act of incarnation is so heavy with metaphor. It's the clash of kings, the retreat of the night, the inherent value of humanity. Christmas is the subversion of expectation. All of these things rolled up into one as the culmination of the Christian story. And I absolutely love that the biggest seasonal to-do we make as a culture is interwoven with the coming of Christ. It is Christ's Mass. But lately, I've been noticing a trend that I find super interesting. The author, Michael Margolis, points out that if you want to learn about a culture, listen to their stories. And if you want to change a culture, change the stories. Lately, I feel like the stories that we tell around our Christmas are changing. There was a time, recently, even within my lifetime, that almost every mainstream TV show, sitcom, what have you, featured an annual Christmas episode. They didn't always need to be preachy like the old Peanuts cartoons were, but there was a general cultural acknowledgement that Christmas was the perfect background setting for whatever story you wanted to tell. It was so prevalent that when a show like Community would spoof it, we would collectively say, oh yeah, that's right. Think about the image that's burned into my brain and probably yours as well of Ross from Friends dressed as the holiday armadillo, trying to keep his own Judaism from being swallowed up by Santa Claus culture. Now try to find an equivalent image from recent popular media. Holiday episodes are still there, but there's been a noticeable shift that's taken place. Christmas isn't the central holiday special anymore. Today, that honor's actually been vested in Halloween. From the early days of Internet 2.0 through to today, Halloween has held a prestige position in our social imaginary. So as we gather here today on Christmas Eve, I want to offer two ideas for us to consider together. I want to offer why I think Halloween was so perfectly ripe for this takeover, and two, why I think Christians should be as enthusiastic in their embrace of Halloween next year as they are in their embrace of Christmas this year. After all, according to a 2019 study by the UK-based Marler Halley, 2019 marked for the first time a year when internet searches for Halloween actually topped internet searches for Christmas, and they topped it by a whopping 55%. Now, granted, we still spend $10 on Christmas for every dollar that we spend on Halloween, so this is not a fair fight. But this shift in search trend habits indicates an important reality. Christmas might have captured our treasure, but Halloween has captured our time. And truthfully, it makes sense, because Christmas and Halloween share a number of important qualities. Both holidays are highly liturgical. Liturgies are, it comes from a Greek word that roughly translates to the work of the people, but they're the cultural habits that we develop, whether consciously or unconsciously, to help us orient ourselves toward the best life we can imagine living. Liturgies involve our color schemes, or our brands, if you want to call them that, our shared activities that we engage in together. They're involved in the symbols and the decoration and other ornamentation. Liturgies involve giving and receiving, and most importantly, liturgies involve a connection to a larger sense of belonging. Both Christmas and Halloween have liturgies in spades. And secondly, both holidays include a trigger for the senses. It's easy to be desensitized to these holidays, especially as you get older, but if you really want to test of what a holiday does to your sensory system, spend that time with a toddler. Last year was the first Christmas where my daughter was actually clued into what was going on. And it was so much for her to take in that we ended up needing to break Christmas morning up over 2 more days just so she could get through with it. The same thing happened this year when she went trick-or-treating for the first time. And before I make it sound like my daughter Elise is some kind of fiend, she's generally a reasonable kid, all considered for a toddler. But she is a great reminder for us that we don't experience either one of these holidays with our minds. They don't exist in our heads. They are holidays of the heart. And thirdly, both Christmas and Halloween are holidays rooted in a deep supernatural reality. Christmas is the story of an infinite God stepping into finite history and inaugurating a new way to be human. Halloween is about living life within a porous reality, where the powers that are imperceptible to our senses influence our world and our lives in big and small ways. Now, I doubt I need to spell out more of the details of the Christmas story for you, but if you do want to know more, you can click up here to watch a video and to watch a pageant that our sending church has put together for you tonight. Halloween's story isn't as well known, though, but the TLDR is that medieval Christians thought the Feast of All Saints, which happens on November 1st, was such a holy day in the calendar year that the demonic powers simply had to lie dormant, and therefore had to do double duty the night before to make up for their mischief quota. So, Christians would don a mask or put on face paint in order to hide in plain sight. Charles Taylor, the great philosopher of the secular mind, calls this kind of behavior carnival, an upending of the ordered world, a release valve from the pressure of living under the perpetual eye of a watchful deity. In his words, it was simply an image of and an invitation to sin. Halloween's rise to prominence indicates what we have been missing in all of our cultural conversation. In our 2020 full-throated embrace of secularity, we have forgotten that we evolved to live in a mystified world. When there is no meta-narrative for us to participate in, there is no need for the release of carnival. Anxiety, depression, addiction, violence, and a host of other symptoms creep up and up and up. The return of carnival to our common conversation tells us, therefore, that a sea change has taken place. We've recognized, even if it's just at a subconscious level right now, that we cannot be the be-all and the end-all of our own story. We all need a cultural release valve. Halloween's popularity is a reminder for us of the truth that a theologian from North Africa wrote 1600 years ago, named Augustine. He said, "The heart is restless until it finds its rest in God." Halloween ultimately points to how much we need Christmas. Beyond the charity and the generosity and the values that we place onto this season of Christmas, we need the core of the truth that lies at the heart of all of it. God has held nothing back from us precisely so that we can rest from all of our striving, from all of our effort. Halloween gives us a message that finally makes that good news sound good again. So what do we do with it? I think, ironically, we embrace what Halloween does best: create knowability. As a kid, I always hated surprises. On Christmas morning, I used to wake up in the middle of the night, sneak upstairs, and open as many presents as I could possibly find, and then put my name back on them and wrap them up and put them back under the tree, because the rule in my house was that opening presents was a family activity. But a weird part of my brain just simply couldn't live with that little bit of unknownness. To me, that's what made Halloween such a perfect holiday. It's what made Halloween my favorite holiday. Because even though everyone was wearing masks or makeup, Halloween felt like a celebration of knowing your neighborhood. As kids, Halloween was the rare occasion where everyone's calendars aligned. Whether you were a kid that was into sports or music or theater or camping or whatever it was, whether or not you were popular or not, or a boy or a girl or rich or poor, you knew that almost everyone was going to be up to the same thing on the night of October 31st. That same knowability got applied to the neighborhood as a whole. We all learned pretty quickly who it was that gave out the best candy, who gave out raisins instead. We learned which houses went full on for Halloween and where the dentist lived. You learned how to tell if a house was avoiding the holiday altogether or not. Halloween taught an entire generation of kids how to read and how to map their community, to identify needs and challenges, to read the geography of a street or a cul-de-sac. Christmas too often sets us as opposition with our neighbors. How many of you have been in a situation where you suddenly get a gift you weren't expecting and now feel the pressure to go out and go shopping just so you can reciprocate? Halloween does away with that whole transactional lifestyle. Halloween simply puts everyone in everyone else's face and says, figure it out. Enjoy sponsored cultural anarchy. Enjoy your carnival. So here's a question for you to discuss with your afterwards group. How can you do your part to make next Christmas a little more black and orange? For now, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. We'll talk to you soon. Merry Christmas from all of us at the Creek. Cheers.